Hello and welcome back to Monday Morning Detective, the podcast. I'm your host, Gino Scala. This is episode 44. And today we're going to discuss a couple of situations. The recent homicide of Christopher Wright in Maryland. And we'll do a follow-up on the Brian Laundrie Gabby Petito crime that occurred last year. Christopher Wright was a father of three in Maryland who was contacted by four adult white males in their 20s and 30s at Mr. Wright's home. They demanded that they, quote unquote, finish the fight between Christopher Wright's young middle schooler and one of their middle schoolers. Now, I saw a family picture of Christopher Wright and the kids, and the only one that was in middle school was a little tyke, and he had glasses, and he was very skinny, and he didn't look like the sort that would fight. He looked bookish, okay? So it would be hard to imagine that he would be in a fight and actually win. But, again, we don't know who the other combatant was. And we don't know really what happened at the first fight. We don't know if there were injuries. We don't know who won. But these four guys came over with the intent of, quote unquote, finishing the fight. Now, when Christopher Wright said, nope, my boy's not coming out, he's not getting in a fight, and attempted to close the door, he was met with these four gentlemen who, I believe, pulled him out of the house or lured him out in some way and said, well, if you're not going to let the boy fight, we'll fight you. And proceeded to beat him to death. Now, we're well aware of how, kicking someone in the head with steel-toed boots could be deadly, especially if it's like in the temple. And that's potentially what happened here. There is very bad video from a Ring, I believe from a Ring doorbell, of the fight that took place, looks to be like 20 yards from the house. And it was behind some cars and such. So it was, I couldn't see anything. I couldn't discern anything from the video. But a grainy group of people with one potentially on the ground. But it's safe to assume that Mr. Wright was the one on the ground and these four guys beat him to death. Now, I've not seen an autopsy report. I'm willing to bet that at least one of the four combatants beating on Mr. Wright had some sort of weapon or club, sap, a sash, even brass knuckles. Brass knuckles have become very popular again. But I believe, since they went over there intending to fight, and anybody in their, any reasonable person would assume that the parent's not going to let the kids fight. So I think their intent was to fight this man all along. And being neighbors, maybe this has been a long brewing situation. But I think they came armed. Now, he wasn't stabbed and he wasn't shot as far as I know. He was beaten to death. So I'm thinking they, had maybe a metal bar or, slammed his head against the concrete or something. And like I said, my immediate thought was brass knuckles, because the damage that set of brass knuckles can do to someone just on a regular punch is almost 10 times what a bare fist could do. So not only would he get, his facial bones crushed, but any punch to the head would probably fracture the skull. And so now the question is, the police know who these people are. They've talked to these people, and yet no arrests have been made. Now, potentially, if they're arrested, they lawyer up and they don't get any further information. Or if they are interviewed downtown at the station as to what happened, more interrogation as opposed to an interview, which took place at the street, on the street, and the interrogation would take place at the police station, they could lie through the entire thing or not say anything, and you're no better off. So I think what their intention is to take the information they have and go to a grand jury, get an indictment, and pass over all these stages. That's somewhat what you do in a questionable crime where you don't have all the pieces, no one's cooperating, and you go to a grand jury, get an indictment. It's a lot easier than having to determine probable cause for an arrest and gathering that evidence. Plus there are time limits and things involved. So that's probably the route they're going, but it's kind of unnerving that they have what they have and these people have not been arrested yet. I'm sure they've been given the order not to leave town, not to leave the country, and they probably will be indicted shortly. So we'll keep an eye out on that. But these people are in serious trouble. They're probably looking, hopefully, I don't know the Maryland justice system, but they're looking at 25 years or more for manslaughter or second degree. Maybe one, or the one who threw the final, the death blow, be it a kick, or if anybody was using a weapon, that person will get the max, and the others will, act as witnesses against that person and get their 5 or 7 years. It's very sad because this guy was only like in his 30s himself, and he had his whole life ahead of him. So that's the Christopher Wright story. Now, an update on the Brian Laundrie and his family. As you recall, Brian Laundrie killed his girlfriend, Gabby Petito, and it was a long, drawn-out investigation. You're quite familiar with that. And they've uncovered a letter written by Mrs. Laundrie to Brian expressing her love for her son. And in the letter, she says, "I will buy you a shovel if you need to bury a body. I will put a file in a cake if you go to jail, or if you go to prison." Things of this nature. Now, it's unclear really when this letter was given to Brian, but all sources say it was long before the murder. And of course, Brian's dead now, so, but there's very strong indications that Laundrie's parents aided in not only the cover-up, but potentially Brian's attempted escape or his suicide. Now, it's hard to imagine mother and father helping their son commit suicide, but if that was his wish after admitting to them that he killed his girlfriend, potentially possible. It's like I said, it's hard to imagine doing such a thing. But now we read that she would do anything for him. We all say that. We all say that to our kids. We'll do anything for you. But I remember asking my father once if I were arrested for murder. I think at the time was assassinating a president or something. I said, would you stand by me? He said, yes, I love you. But, I would also hope that the justice system would serve the public. And if that meant you being in prison for the rest of your life, so be it. That's the consequences of your actions. But I will always love you, and I will always, I will visit you and write you and all that. And he was very honest, and that's my dad to a T. And quite frankly, that's me. If my child admitted that, now if there was question about the child's guilt, then I would do everything I could to get them out, everything legal. But it's just it's an interesting story, and the fact is, it seems very possible that the parents of Brian Laundrie were involved post-murder. And I think they had information as to where she was. I think they had information as to what happened to her long before the police found her and figured it out. And they did everything they could to hamper this investigation. So I'm hoping that they get the full power of the law against them. I hope they are sued into bankruptcy by Gabby's family. I hope the law, I hope they're arrested and serve the maximum. And that's my feeling. Now, I don't have any information or evidence, but that's my feeling. So, if you have a feeling one way or another and like to share it, feel free to comment. And, if you have any insight or other information, please feel free to share it. And this will conclude episode 44 of the Monday Morning Detective podcast. And we'll see you next time around. Have a great day. Bye-bye.